Hello folks, this is Johnny again. The other day I was kind of bored and I was fiddling around a little bit, and then I thought, what would happen if I used a simple distortion plugin that comes with my DAW as an amp simulator? Well, the results are kind of interesting enough that I want to share them with you. So here's a short demo of what I got with that idea, and I will walk you through how I got that tone afterwards. So check it out. So how did I go about making that tone? Alright, over here we have the rhythm DI tracks. Just the raws, straightforward and simple. And you know what? Let's start off with the raw basics for this tone. So first of all, the stomp box, of course, TC 808 always works well, sort of, when you're going with free stuff at least. Tone knob all the way up, drive knob all the way down, and volume about 2 o'clock. 1 to 2 o'clock. And then, of course, the distortion plugin. So this is the Redlight Distortion, which just comes with Studio One. And I use the bad tube setting. Hard tube also works well on bias number 3 or stage number 3. So really hard driven, and distortion all the way up, drive about 50%. Okay, so there's my basis for the actual distorted tone. And then after that, impulse response. I'm using the Buddha 4x12 by Rosen Digital for this one. And by the way, that one works very well for low-tuned guitars and crunchy mids and the gent sound. So yeah, that is our basic tone. And what does it sound like right now? Okay, kind of muddy. Let's see what we can do. First of all, let's get in our gates. For starters, I like to go with an expander, because my approach with the Pod HD Pro tones is also I use the simple noise gate at the very first thing in the chain. And that one is not really a hard gate, it's more like an, it feels more like an expander the way it behaves. So that's also what I'm doing here. And then behind the TSE 808, I put a hard gate. So this is really just cutting it off. I'm also going for pretty much the same settings I would also use on my pod. And then, before the Redlight Distortion plugin, I also put some pre-EQing. And I need to take out some of the low end and lower mid, so I'm just shelving it out, and then I'm boosting 3K area to get it a bit more crunky and more defined and get out the mud. So I'm just going to turn this one on as I play back the tone. So there you see pre-EQing can have a drastic effect on your tone. Think of it less as changing the tone of your pickups and more like you're changing the characteristics of your amp and the way it distorts the sound. Because when you, for example, take out those lower mids and low end, then it will not muddy up the amp when it distorts. And also when I boost the 3K area, it adds this more crunch and definition in there. Okay, of course, post-EQing, this would sound horrible. So this is solely for pre-EQing. And then behind the distortion plugin, I put the saturation knob from Softtube. This acts kind of like my power amp section. It adds this little bit of more drive and it tightens up the lower mids. And also because it boosts the volume a whole lot because there's no automated volume decrease or no volume button to counteract it. Of course, I need to edit the audio later on in this video so you don't get your ears blown all to bits. Okay, again, before and after with this one. Okay, now let's check this one in the mix already. Alright, we're getting somewhere. Then some normal post-EQing, just filtering out the low end so it sits right in the mix. Then I also took out some of the lower mids so it doesn't sound too muddy, and then of course filtering and a little bit of 4 to 5K boost so it has a bit more bite and just sits better in the mix. Okay, and the longer I listen to this tone, I realized there has to be some filtering done. Here it is 630 Hertz. There's some weird ringing going on. I suspect it's some resonance from the cap impulse. And then also at 3.2K, there's a little bit of harshness and ringing. And yeah, and that is basically the finished tone in the mix. And then after that one, just a little bit of compressing the low end to get control on palm mutes. And that's that. And then when I turn on the mastering chain, you will hear what you just heard before in the demo. You can also download that short demo if you like. I uploaded it and for your pleasure, whatever you want to do with it. Yeah. And there you have it. I hope this gave you some ideas to just fill around with some nonsense and see what happens. And who knows, perhaps you'll get something decent or interesting or something usable for your music. See ya.